What would you do if a harmless joke completely destroyed your life, your career, and everything you worked for? My name is Esther, and I thought my neighbors were my friends until they pulled a prank that cost me everything. But sometimes revenge isn't just about getting even. Sometimes it's about showing people exactly what they've taken from you. This is the story of how I turned their joke into their worst nightmare. I lived in Maple Street for 8 years, in a quiet suburban neighborhood where everyone knew everyone. The Johnsons lived next door with their twin teenage boys, and seemed like the perfect family. Sarah Johnson and I would chat over the fence about gardening and our kids. Her husband Mike always waved when he saw me coming home from work. I was a marketing director at a prestigious firm downtown and had just gotten promoted to senior level. Everything in my life was going perfectly until that Tuesday morning in March. The night before I had stayed up late preparing for the biggest presentation of my career, I was pitching $1 million campaign to our most important client. My alarm was set for 6 a.m. because I needed extra time to review my notes and look professional. But when I woke up that morning, something felt wrong. My phone showed 11:30 a.m. I had overslept by 5.5 hours on the most important day of my professional life. I rushed to get ready, calling my assistant frantically. She told me the client meeting had already started without me. My boss was furious, and the client was confused about where the lead presenter was. I threw on clothes and drove to the office, breaking every speed limit. When I arrived, the meeting was over and the client had already left. My boss called me into his office with a look I had never seen before. He asked me what could possibly be more important than $1 million presentation. I tried to explain that my alarm didn't go off, but he wasn't buying it. The client felt disrespected and was considering pulling their account. My promotion was immediately revoked, and I was put on probation. 3 months of hard work and preparation destroyed in one morning. That evening, I went home, devastated, trying to figure out what went wrong with my phone. I checked my alarm settings and discovered something that made my blood run cold. Someone had changed my alarm from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., but my phone was password protected and never left my nightstand. The only people who had been in my house recently were the Johnsons. 2 days earlier, Sarah had borrowed my phone charger and spent time in my bedroom. I confronted Sarah about it the next day, but she denied everything. She said I must have changed it myself by accident, but I knew exactly what I had set because I triple-checked it that night. Over the next few weeks, I started paying closer attention to my neighbors. I noticed Mike and Sarah whispering and laughing when they saw me. Their teenage boys would smirk whenever I walked past their house. One Saturday morning, I was working in my garden when I heard voices from their backyard. The boys were talking loudly about pranks they had pulled on people. One of them mentioned how funny it was watching me rush out that Tuesday morning. The other one laughed about how easy it was to change someone's alarm when they're not looking. They talked about how their dad had suggested the idea as a harmless joke. My hands started shaking as I realized the entire family had conspired against me. That evening, I knocked on their door and asked to speak with Mike and Sarah. I told them I had heard their sons talking about changing my alarm. Mike's face went red, and Sarah looked away. They claimed it was just the boys being silly, and they had no idea about any prank. But I could see the guilt in their eyes, and the way they avoided looking at me directly. They said it was just meant to be funny, and they never thought it would cause real problems. Just a harmless joke, they said. But that harmless joke cost me my promotion and put my job in jeopardy. It damaged my reputation with the most important client our firm had. My colleagues started questioning my reliability and professionalism. The stress caused me to develop insomnia and anxiety attacks. I spent weeks trying to rebuild trust with my boss and colleagues. The worst part was that the Johnsons continued acting like nothing had happened. They would wave and smile like we were still friendly neighbors. Sarah even had the nerve to ask if I wanted to join their weekend barbecue. They seemed to think an apology would magically fix everything they had destroyed. But apologies don't restore lost promotions or damaged reputations. I realized they needed to understand the real consequences of their actions. For weeks, I watched them through my windows, learning their daily routines. Mike left for work every morning at 7:15 sharp. Sarah took the boys to school at 8, and went to her yoga class after they had dinner together every night at 6 and watched TV until 10. Their life was so predictable and comfortable. They had no idea what it felt like to have everything fall apart because of someone else's cruelty. I started researching Mike's company online and discovered he was up for a major promotion. He worked at a conservative financial firm where image and reliability were everything. Sarah was president of the Parent-Teacher Association at their boys' school. She organized charity events and considered herself a pillar of the community. They had built their entire identity around being the perfect suburban family. I decided it was time to show them how quickly that image could crumble. The plan came to me gradually as I observed their social media posts. They constantly bragged about their family values and community involvement. Mike posted about integrity and trustworthiness in his LinkedIn articles. Sarah shared inspirational quotes about kindness and treating others well. Their hypocrisy was breathtaking, considering what they had done to me. I realized the perfect revenge would be exposing the gap between their public image and private actions. I created anonymous social media accounts and started documenting everything. I took photos of their house and car license plates. I researched their extended family and professional connections. I found out about Mike's upcoming promotion interview and Sarah's charity gala. The key was timing everything perfectly to cause maximum impact. I wanted them to feel the same helplessness I had experienced that terrible morning. I started with subtle moves that would build up slowly. I created fake social media profiles and began following their friends and colleagues. I posted comments on their photos that seemed supportive but contained hidden messages. I would write things like, "Hope you sleep well, knowing what you've done," or, "Your boys must be so proud of the values you're teaching them." Their friends thought I was just being supportive, but the Johnsons understood the real meaning. Next, I began leaving anonymous notes in their mailbox. Simple messages like, "Jokes have consequences," and "Remember Esther's promotion." I made sure the handwriting was disguised and used generic paper from the store. Mike started checking over his shoulder when he got the mail. Sarah stopped leaving their windows open at night. I could see them getting paranoid and looking at every neighbor with suspicion. The psychological pressure was building exactly as I had planned. They knew someone was watching them but couldn't figure out who. They started arguing more, and I could hear raised voices through their walls. Their perfect family image was beginning to crack under the stress. But this was just the beginning of what I had planned for them. The real payback was still coming. 2 weeks before Mike's big promotion interview, I put the next phase into action. I had researched his company's values and code of conduct thoroughly. They prided themselves on employing people with strong moral character. I created a detailed anonymous report about the alarm clock incident. I included screenshots of their social media posts about integrity and family values. I contrasted these with a timeline of what they had actually done to me. I sent the report to Mike's boss and the Human Resources Department. I made sure to include evidence like photos of their house and details only a neighbor would know. I wrote about how they had conspired as a family to sabotage their neighbor's career. I emphasized how they had shown no remorse and continued to act like nothing happened. I painted a picture of people who would smile to your face while stabbing you in the back. The report concluded that someone willing to destroy a neighbor's livelihood couldn't be trusted with company responsibilities. Within 3 days, Mike was called into his boss's office for an emergency meeting. I watched from my window as he left for work that morning looking confident. When he came home that evening, his face was pale and his shoulders were slumped. Sarah met him at the door, and I could see them having an intense conversation. Their boys sensed something was wrong and kept asking questions. The next morning, Mike didn't leave for work at his usual time. Mike's promotion was not only canceled, but he was also placed under review for his conduct. His company launched an internal investigation into his character and judgment. Meanwhile, I had sent similar reports to the school board about Sarah. I detailed how the president of the Parent-Teacher Association had taught her children to vandalize a neighbor's property. I explained how she had participated in a conspiracy that damaged someone's career. I included screenshots of her inspirational posts about kindness and community support. Sarah received a call from the school principal requesting a meeting. The other PTA members started questioning her leadership and moral authority. Parents began pulling their children out of events she organized. Her charity gala was canceled because sponsors didn't want to be associated with the controversy. The local newspaper even picked up the story about the suburban family revenge plot. Their names and photos were published alongside details of what they had done to me. The boys were suspended from school for their role in the prank. Their friends' parents didn't want their children associating with the Johnson family college applications were affected because the incident was now part of their permanent records. The entire family became pariahs in the neighborhood they had called home. Other neighbors started sharing their own stories about suspicious incidents involving the Johnsons. It became clear this wasn't their first time targeting someone for their entertainment. Within 2 months, the Johnson family's entire life had collapsed. Mike lost his job completely after the company decided he was a liability. Sarah resigned from the PTA in disgrace, and their social circle abandoned them. The boys were transferred to a different school district to escape the scandal. They put their house up for sale and moved away without saying goodbye to anyone. The for sale sign in their yard was the sweetest sight I had ever seen, but the most satisfying moment came when Mike knocked on my door one final time. He looked broken and defeated as he tried to apologize for what they had done. He said they never meant for their joke to cause such serious problems. He begged me to call off whatever campaign I was running against them. I looked him straight in the eye and told him exactly what I thought I said. That actions have consequences, and they were finally learning that lesson. I reminded him that I had lost my promotion and nearly lost my job because of their harmless joke. I told him that while I had worked to rebuild my career, they had continued to mock me. I explained that they had shown no remorse until their own lives were affected. I said that real jokes are supposed to be funny for everyone involved. What they did was calculated cruelty disguised as humor. They had made their choice, and now they had to live with the results. 6 months later, I received the promotion I had originally been denied. My boss apologized for doubting me and praised my resilience during a difficult time. The client who had walked out of that meeting eventually returned and specifically requested to work with me. My colleagues gained new respect for how I had handled the situation with grace. I used the Johnson incident as a case study for overcoming professional setbacks. My career actually benefited in the long run from the adversity they had caused. The house next door sold to a lovely elderly couple who became wonderful neighbors. They invited me over for dinner, and we talked about gardening and books. It was refreshing to have neighbors who understood boundaries and respect. Sometimes I think about the Johnson family and wonder where they ended up. I hope they learned to think before they act and consider the impact of their choices. But honestly, I don't lose sleep over what happened to them. People often ask me if I feel guilty about destroying their lives. I tell them that I didn't destroy anything. I simply revealed the truth about who they really were behind their perfect facade. They destroyed their own lives through their actions and choices. I just made sure those actions had appropriate consequences. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people face the results of their own behavior. The moral of this story is that there are no harmless jokes when they cause real harm to real people. Before you decide to prank someone, think about what you might be taking from them. A few minutes of your entertainment could cost someone their dreams, their livelihood, or their peace of mind. And remember that in today's connected world, the truth has a way of catching up with you. Your actions will find their way back to you eventually. If you enjoyed this story of perfect revenge, don't forget to like and subscribe for more dramatic tales. Share your own revenge stories in the comments below. And remember that sometimes the best payback is simply letting karma do its work. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.